Mirror, mirror on the wall. But what if the mirror never lied at all? Tonight, we journey beyond the fairy tale to a world where innocence is a curse and beauty can cost you your soul. Once upon a time, they sang of a kingdom wrapped in beauty. Golden towers that rose like the fingers of the gods, rivers that glistened like melted silver, and meadows so green they seemed to dance beneath the sun. To the world beyond, it was a paradise. But paradise is always a mask. Behind the laughter and the songs, there were whispers. Whispers that the queen was not merely a ruler, but a sorceress cloaked in velvet and deception. They said she was driven mad by jealousy, jealous of a child's innocent beauty. But the truth was far more terrifying. Jealousy was only the seed. Power was the root. The queen, born of noble blood but hollowed by ambition, had always hungered for more. Not just the fleeting glow of youth, not just the empty adoration of courtiers. She wanted what no mortal soul should dare dominion over life itself. She scoured the kingdom's darkest corners, collecting secrets and spells whispered in the dead of night. And in the end, she found it. A relic whispered to be forged by the witches of the Black Forest. A mirror, black as midnight, veined with silver curses. They said the mirror was a prison trapping the souls of those who dared to seek its truths. They said it had been bathed in blood, and bound to the will of whoever dared gaze into its depths. The queen, ever the hunter of forbidden's power, did not hesitate. She stole the mirror under the cloak of darkness, her heart pounding not with fear, but with anticipation. From the moment her fingers touched its cold obsidian frame, she was no longer merely a queen. She was something else. The mirror did not grant her power freely. For every question she dared ask, the mirror demanded a price. Whispers turned to screams in her mind. Her dreams became nightmares, and her soul grew as brittle as glass. And yet, she could not turn away. For the mirror showed her the future, an image so chilling it sank its claws into her very bones. A child, skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, hair as black as night. A child destined not to be her daughter, but her doom. The mirror's prophecy was clear. The day Snow White took her first breath would be the day the queen's power began to rot. But what if Snow White was not the innocent victim of this tale? What if her birth was no accident, but the final stroke of a curse centuries old? A curse of betrayal, of spilled blood and broken vows. The mirror had shown the queen more than just her downfall. It had shown her that Snow White was the key. The key to an ancient darkness that no kingdom's walls could ever contain. This was no fairy tale. This was the beginning of a tale written in blood, in lies, in the echoes of 1,000 silent screams. A kingdom built on lies. And a queen who would do anything to keep her throne. The queen could feel it, her youth fading like the last glow of sunset, slipping through her fingers like sand. Her once rosy cheeks had grown pale, her eyes hollow, haunted by restless nights. No potion nor painted smile could hide the truth. The years were catching up, and she was powerless to stop them. Powerless, until she turned to the mirror. Each night, she sat before its blackened surface, her breath fogging the cold glass. Her trembling fingers traced the runes etched in its ancient frame. She whispered the incantations she had stolen from the witches, trading her soul's warmth for the dark promise of immortality. The mirror spoke in riddles, 1,000 voices echoing in the shadows of her mind. It promised her eternal youth, unending beauty, if she would only feed it what it craved. Blood, not of strangers or servants, but blood that ran in her veins. Her heart pounded in her chest, torn between terror and temptation. In the mirror's depths, she saw visions, a kingdom in flames, her golden halls reduced to ash. Snow White, grown and crowned in red, standing over her fallen kingdom. The queen's throne, nothing but ruin. The mirror's whispers became commands. Blood calls to blood. The price must be paid. Each word was a blade, carving away her sanity. until she was nothing but a puppet to its hunger. She began to see Snow White not as a child of her blood, but as an enemy, an intruder fated to steal everything she had clawed her way to possess. Night after night, the queen's mind twisted around this vision, wrapping tighter and tighter like a serpent's coils. She no longer slept. She no longer wept. She only waited for the moment when she would make the sacrifice the mirror demanded. Because the mirror had promised her this: the blood of your own kin will keep the flames at bay. And so the queen's obsession became her religion, her soul, her crown, and her very heart, all laid upon the altar of a single terrible desire: to defy fate, to keep her power, to sacrifice whatever or whoever it took. When Snow White was born, the kingdom rejoiced. The stars themselves seemed to dance above the castle, and the bells rang out across the hills. But in the queen's heart, there was no joy, only the cold certainty of a prophecy fulfilled. The child was everything the mirror had foretold: skin as white as the driven snow, lips the color of fresh spilled blood, hair dark as a raven's wing. Each breath she took was a promise and a threat. The kingdom called her a blessing, an innocent light in a world of shadows. But the queen, she saw something else. She saw the mirror's prophecy made flesh. She saw her own ruin cradled in soft blankets, eyes wide with wonder, unaware of the darkness she carried within. As Snow White grew, her beauty bloomed like a rose, and with every petal unfurled, the queen felt the thorns pressing deeper into her heart. The people adored the child. Her laughter was like music, her smile like dawn. And yet, to the queen, each smile was a dagger, a reminder that her days were numbered. She could not bear to see it, and yet she could not turn away. Love twisted by fear became something monstrous. A mother's embrace turned to chains. But there was another who watched, one whose heart was not claimed by envy. The huntsman, sworn by an oath older than any crown. He was charged with protecting the line of blood. He saw in Snow White not a threat, but a child innocent, fragile and untouched by the queen's madness. He hid in the shadows, a silent guardian with eyes like the forest, ancient and unyielding. He alone knew the truth, that the mirror's prophecy could not be undone by blood spilled on the forest floor, only by the breaking of the curse itself. In the cold halls of the castle, where the queen's whispers turned to screams, the huntsman swore this silent vow: no blade will touch her, no trap will claim her. I will be the wall between her and the darkness that seeks her soul. Because Snow White's birth was never a blessing. It was a curse etched in beauty, forged in blood, and destined to shatter the kingdom's fragile peace. A mother's love, twisted by fear, and a child, cursed by beauty. The day came when the queen's obsession became an order. In the flickering torchlight of her chambers, she called for the huntsman. Her voice was sweet as poison, her words laced with velvet threats. "Bring me the girl's heart," she whispered, her lips curling in a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Bring me proof that she will never again steal what is mine." The huntsman bowed, but in his heart, he wept. For he knew he could no longer protect the girl within these stone walls. The only choice left was the forest, where the shadows might hide her from the queen's wrath. So he led Snow White deep into the woods, deeper than any path known to mortal men. The girl's wide eyes held no fear. She was too young to know the weight of betrayal. When the time came, his hand trembled on the hilt of his knife. The forest held its breath as he raised the blade, but he could not do it. Instead, he turned the knife on a creature of the wild, a stag whose life ended swiftly beneath the blade. Its heart, still warm, he wrapped in velvet and sealed in an iron box. He whispered to Snow White, his voice ragged and filled with desperate hope. "Run, run far and never look back. The queen must never see you again." Snow White vanished into the trees, the forest closing around her like a mother's embrace. And the huntsman returned to the queen with the box, a box that dripped with the blood of a lie. The queen took it in trembling hands, her eyes alight with a hunger older than time. She feasted upon the heart, believing it was the girl's, believing she had devoured her rival's soul. Each bite was a sacrament, a dark communion. She licked the blood from her lips, drunk on the power she thought she had stolen. The taste of triumph was as sweet as the first bloom of spring. But as the last drop of blood slid down her throat, the mirror, cold and unblinking, began to murmur. Its voice was 1,000 echoes in the dark. She still lives. She still lives. The queen's smile froze. Her triumph turned to ashes in her mouth. And in that moment, a crack split the darkness of her mind. A crack that would soon become a chasm. Snow White ran until the world blurred into darkness. Branches tore at her skin. Roots rose to trip her steps. Her breath came in ragged sobs, each one a promise to keep moving, to keep living. The forest swallowed her whole, a labyrinth of ancient trees and whispers older than the kingdom itself. Every shadow seemed to hold her fate. Every rustle of leaves, the queen's breath upon her neck. But even in her fear, the girl's heart did not break. Deep within her, a quiet ember burned, a will to survive, a spark of something older than blood or crown. In the heart of the woods, she stumbled upon a hidden glade, shrouded in mist and lit by a pale, unearthly glow. Here, the 7 outcasts found her. They were not dwarves of childish fables, but men marked by exile and secrets keepers of lost arts, alchemists of the old ways. Some said they were spirits of the forest itself, woven from the roots and the river's song. They saw the girl for what she was: not a princess in peril, but a living key. Her blood carried the echo of ancient magic, her soul the last unbroken thread of a prophecy long whispered among the trees. They took her in, weaving wards of protection and ancient runes to keep the queen's darkness at bay. Each night, they taught her the old ways: how to read the language of leaves, how to summon the power of moonlight. And though fear still wrapped her like a shroud, Snow White felt a glimmer of hope in their watchful eyes. In the depths of the forest, the girl became the hunted, but also the hidden heir to an ancient magic, a power older than the queen's mirror, older than the kingdom's blood-soaked crown. The forest would not give her up, and neither would the outcasts who called it home. In her castle of shadows, the queen turned to the blackest arts whispered in the darkness, too foul for any mortal heart to hold. By the light of a dying moon, she summoned the spirits of the forest's forgotten dead. She wove their grief and malice into a single perfect fruit, an apple as red as fresh spilled blood. With each breath, she chanted ancient incantations, feeding the apple her own soul's hunger. She whispered the names of old gods long buried. She burned the blood of her enemies in the apple's skin. This was no simple poison. It was a vessel of death itself, a final offering to the mirror's endless hunger. And so, the queen disguised herself, draping her malice in a cloak of shadows and sweet smiles. She found Snow White alone in the forest, where even the birds dared not sing. The girl's eyes, wide with innocent trust, never saw the venom behind the queen's gentle voice. "Sweet child," the queen crooned, her fingers white on the apple's curve. "Taste this fruit and know true love's bliss." Snow White took the apple in trembling hands. She saw only beauty, red and ripe, shimmering with promise. But beneath that fragile skin lay a curse that would bind her soul to the mirror's darkness forever. With one bite, the world turned cold. The forest shivered. The girl's breath grew shallow, her heart slowed, and her eyes fluttered shut. Her soul became a prisoner in a dreamless sleep, caught in the shadow between life and death. But the queen's triumph was not yet complete. For as Snow White's final breath left her lips, the mirror's voice rose in a chorus of delight. Each bite of that cursed apple fed the darkness that slumbered within the glass. With each bite, the mirror whispered, "Snow White's soul was imprisoned, and my power grew." And as the queen watched the girl's still body, she did not see the faintest flicker of light, a glimmer of something that refused to die. A secret yet to be revealed. A destiny that would not be broken. The forest held its breath as the prince arrived, his heart heavy with a love that was not entirely pure. His kiss was not a promise of forever, it was a desperate act, a final attempt to free the girl from the prison of her own body. As his lips touched hers, the magic of the mirror trembled. Cracks spider-webbed across the glass, each one a fracture in the queen's twisted soul. In her dark tower, the queen screamed as the mirror's power turned against her. Her reflection twisted in agony, each crack in the glass mirrored in her flesh. The mirror shattered in an explosion of darkness, and with it, the queen's soul was torn apart, scattered to the corners of the night, lost to the shadows she had once commanded. In the forest glade, Snow White's eyes fluttered open. She drew her first breath, her lips still stained red from the apple's curse. But she was not the same girl who had once believed in fairy tales. In her heart, she felt the echo of the mirror's whispers, a shadow that would never fully fade. Snow White rose, her step slow but steady. She looked upon the world with eyes that had seen too much, and a soul forever marked by the darkness she had survived. They say she lived happily ever after, but some mirrors never forget. As darkness falls and the echoes of the queen's final scream fade into silence, the forest grows still. The ancient mirror lies in ruin, its shards glinting like cursed stars beneath the moonlight. But in those broken pieces, something still watches. A soft whisper like the memory of a curse lingers in the cold night air. And in Snow White's eyes, a flicker of something more than life. A glimmer of the darkness she once fled. Was Snow White truly free? Or did the mirror's curse live on within her? If you think the tale ends here, you haven't looked deep enough into the mirror. Subscribe to Sinister Stories for more twisted truths and forgotten legends. Because fairy tales were never meant to be safe. Turn on the bell before the next shadow finds you.